Guys, it's really getting bad. We've been down here now on the third day, and this is the worst that we've seen. Not unexpected, but there is a driving force.
Continuing our coverage now from the Outer Banks to here on the south side. We know 10 on your side's Aisha Tolliver joins us live from Norfolk. Aisha, how are the conditions for you there?
Guys, they are definitely getting worse as far as flooding goes. When we first came out here this morning at about around 7 or so, I mean, the water line had just started coming up to about here. And as you can see, it has crept.
All right, let's go to Hampton now because we want to get a check of things and how they're looking on the peninsula.
10 on your side's Tamara Scott is live now in Hampton for us. Tamara, pretty windy out there. Still looks like the waves are really rough.
Oh yeah, it's definitely hitting hard now. I know when I spoke with you guys earlier, I was telling you about those wind gusts, but as you can see, this water is just slamming into the back of me as this water is pulling up on this seawall here.
And if you do lose power, contact Dominion Energy immediately. You can do that online or give them a call. The number is 1-866-DOM-HELP. I'll send it back to you guys in the studio. Maria Elena, thank you. The time is now 10:41. We are continuing our coverage as Hurricane Dorian hits northeast North Carolina and here in Hampton Roads.
Here's a look at the visible satellite. Since the sun is up now, we can get a clear look at what Dorian looks like on the eye and the center of circulation.
And I'm going to show you the full fury of Dorian. All right, ready? Here I go. Right out here. All right. Now we're out here. We've got all the wind coming out from the Albemarle Sound up here. And this is the Pamlico Sound, of course, but it is enough to hold you up. You can see it is that strong. Now, the storm hurricane passed on Hatteras. We are getting reports of 4 feet of storm surge. But you can see it is enough to hold you up.
Now, one of the areas hardest hit, of course, we're just talking about it, is the Outer Banks.
Now, heavy rain has been coming down steadily since early this morning. We're going to head over to Jason Marks. Jason, looks you can barely stand out there.
Yeah, guys, these are the strongest winds by far that we've had all day long. I have my wind meter, I just clocked an 80-mile-per-hour wind, 86 miles per hour. It really is coming in now. We are sustaining at 37, 44, 59, 59, with a high of 86.3. 86.3 is what we got so far here at the Comfort Inn.
There we go, we got one. And here we are. There's one, there's one.
But as expected, on the backside, that's the strongest winds.
Speaking of North Carolina, our team coverage of Hurricane Dorian continues right now with our Andy Fox in next.
Andy, you're standing by. The conditions are still really bad out there.
We actually had to move from our last position because it started to flood, so we came up here on the causeway from South Nags Head over to Manio. And let me show you what the issue is. This is the Albemarle Sound. It's the Albemarle Sound, and it has come across its banks. It has breached. It has come across, and all that water is now going into the Pamlico Sound, as I've been reporting. Then it makes its way down to Hatteras Island and to the villages, and that's where the flooding comes from. But we are at ground zero for that. It all begins right here with the Albemarle Sound and the Pamlico Sound. And you can see it's just coming across at will. And let me show you where it goes. It's going right over here, right down into the Pamlico Sound. We were behind that building right over there. That's where we were, photographer Rob Rizzo and I. And it is all flooded down there. So we had to get into our car and come up here onto the causeway. And I'm telling you this right now, it holds you up. 70-mile-per-hour winds holding you up. You heard from my colleague Jason Marks who was giving you the numbers. This is somewhere between 65 and 70, and this is what's happening. And this is going to be the problem tomorrow and the next day. And look at this debris here. When you're out, you got to be really careful, because on the other side of this, nails. And so when you're out here walking, well, you shouldn't be out here walking, but when you have debris on the road like this, never step on it, never drive over it.
One of the hardest hit areas right now is the Outer Banks. Heavy rain has been coming down steadily since early this morning. We know 10 on your side's Jason Marks joins us live now from Nags Head. Jason, just a little bit ago, you clocked 86 mile-an-hour winds in your area, and it's still looking really intense out there.
Yeah, and it hasn't let up at all. I just clocked an 83 mile per hour wind. We're having really, really strong winds right now. Let's see what's going on with this thing. You can hear it whipping around right now. Jeremy talked about it all morning long, that the strongest winds would be after the storm. Let's see what we're getting right now. 83 miles an hour. All right, still 83 is the high. So you can see we are getting the strongest winds, and take a look at what's happening to the surf. The surf is starting to get closer to the shoreline, which is what we thought was going to happen. High tide is at 1 o'clock, and you can see what's happening. That wind is just blowing the water closer and closer to the beach. So when we talk about flooding on the Outer Banks, it really is a double whammy. You have the ocean flooding, which usually is what floods out Highway 12 on Hatteras Island, and then you have the sound side flooding. And my colleague Andy Fox is showing you why there's sound side flooding in the Outer Banks. And it really is whipping around, guys. Whoa. This is why they ordered that mandatory curfew last night at 8 o'clock. They did not want anyone out and about in this. Last night, everything shut down at 8 o'clock. Everything's going to remain shut down until after the storm. Just trying to see if we're going to get higher than 83. So the reason why they didn't want anyone out of this is for this reason here. And what happens now is we're starting to get the flooding as we get a little bit of a let up for a second. And they don't want people out and about. Rescue crews need to get somewhere, and there's another gust. So this is what happens here. You get a little bit of a lull, and then you get another gust.
And now we want to go to Hampton and see how things are looking on the peninsula right now at 11:45.
10 on your side's Tamara Scott is live there in Hampton for us now. We know, Tamara, earlier the water behind you was just hitting and splashing up behind you. It seems like it's still doing that. Conditions are still pretty bad out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I almost feel like it's intensified since then. My stance has changed. I have to kind of brace myself as these winds are coming in. And I know you just saw that because I just felt it. The water is just slamming against this seawall here, but I want to show you exactly what has changed here. Before I told you when it was hitting that seawall there, that it was just hitting the seawall, but I told you it would be coming up towards this grass, and that's exactly what it's doing here. My photographer, Mike Marrero, is going to pan over here so you can see how much water is just flooding into the grass over here on this other yard. Before earlier when we saw you last, it had not reached up here yet. So this is what we're seeing. When I told you earlier we'd be seeing this water be coming back up into these yards and flooding. This is exactly what we're seeing here. This is what we've been talking about and what they were warning people about as far as this flooding in this area.
And you can see now that water has completely covered that middle street, and we have been forced back almost to the next street down to near where the parking is for the Chrysler Museum. So definitely have seen a big increase out here.
There, Andy, everything's still very intense. The wind obviously very strong for you.
Okay, it's really loud. We have some breaking news. This is 64. South Nags Head down there, Mandy over there. Look at this, the power poles. We were out here and the power poles collapsed. About 6 or 7 of them. Power is out here. It just happened, so I can't tell you how many people are affected, but these power poles just went down. The transformers exploding. There are a lot of light and it looked like fire, and so that's a thing we're dealing with right now. It just happened, so we don't know how many people are affected. What you're looking there is the overwash from Albemarle Sound coming across 64 here. the causeway, and then coming over here into the Pamlico Sound as we've been reporting. Again, photographer Rob Rizzo and I were behind that building right there when we were doing our earlier broadcast. It was a great shelter, but the problem was that it continued to rise and rise. The waters, the flooding waters coming from the Albemarle overwashing, and then coming down here into the Pamlico Sound, and right here in front of us, a power pole. There's a utility pole right there on the ground. And Rob, if we can we keep going left here? Let me just show you this, what the other poles look like. You can see it's just a big mess. That one and that one, you can see another power pole, utility pole down there on the ground. So that's down, these are all down. Everything's been, this will be part of the cleanup for sure. And again, this is breaking, so I don't know how many are without power.
So the winds are going to be the issue, and it's not just for the Outer Banks, it's also for the Hampton Road cities.
There, Andy, we have seen you being knocked all around by this storm.
Yes, Don and Katie, let me tell you something. We got to clean off the lens there because it's really wet out here. We do have some breaking news as we first reported in the last half hour. We have major power outage right here on 64. South Nags Head's there, over to Manio. You can see all the power lines. All the power lines are down. As we come right, we're coming right. You can see all the lines up there. We saw the transformers popping. Right over here, one of the utility poles is down here. This literally happened while we were standing here.
We want to get right to our Jason Marks, who is also there weathering this storm. Jason, just brutal conditions right now.
Hey, Katie, yeah, obviously the strongest winds that we've seen throughout the day. We're now at high tide. Take a look at the ocean. We do have some good news, if there's any good news about the storm. Things are lighting up. It's not as dark as it was a half an hour ago. It's almost as if the sun is about to come out.
10 on your side's Chris Horn is live now in Portsmouth. Let's have a listen to what he has to say. Chris, you've been dealing with some of that tidal flooding in Old Town for a little while this morning.
Yeah, Katie, Dinwiddie Street pretty much engulfed now. It was rising water ever since we got here about 7 this morning. And the cars, there haven't been any cars on Dinwiddie all morning, so people knew ahead of time to get their cars to higher ground. They know that these conditions will get like this, and they're just going to get worse.
There's a family right here on the boardwalk. They drove their car up and they're taking pictures of the waves as Hurricane Dorian rolls in. So this is an example of what Virginia Beach police are talking about. They say they are giving out tickets because this is both dangerous and illegal. That's what the tweet says. I want to show you the waves over here. You can see them just rolling in. This wind and rain has been consistent for about 2 hours now. You can see just how high the waves are. They're pushing in toward the Virginia Beach fishing pier, and you can see they're almost touching the bottom of that pier.
Where I'm standing, we have something pretty interesting going on. The water should be about to my chest level, but it's not. It's all the way at my ankles. It's actually getting higher and higher. I checked in with our meteorologist, and they said that this is part of a sloshing effect that's being caused by the north winds. So all the water in this river was taken out. It's extremely low right now. If you can see the water marks on the bridge right there, how high those are, and then how low the river water is. So all of that water will be coming back, but for right now it is way lower than normal.
Hurricane Dorian has left the region. Now we're starting to see what it left behind.
That's right. We're going to go to the Weather Center now with our Chief Meteorologist Don Slater and get the latest as we see this really interesting sunset behind you.
Yeah, I've got a feeling Tom Shad will be walking around outside the building going like this. Camera.
I know, it's one of my weird things. Huh?
Yeah, he loves taking pictures of sunsets. And this could be a good one because there is a little bit of light at the horizon.
This is some of the damage that we found. Dorian did not leave without leaving her mark. Take a look at this. This is the Days Inn and Suites, also known as the Mariner here in Kill Devil Hills. Look how the roof has been peeled back. That is from Dorian. And there's also part of the Avalon Pier out on the beach right out front here. We've got massive surf still out there. So Tom and Anita, we look back on this day and we just go, woof, and then we remember the Bahamas where the winds were 2 times what they were here. And they were really high here. I mean,
and there's so many areas,
Andy. It's amazing the power of Mother Nature.